Good morning, everybody. Today's passage is from Matthew chapter 10, verses 17 to 24. And Jesus is preparing his disciples for the persecution that is to come. It starts off saying, "Beware of people, because they will hand you over to councils and flog you in their synagogues. You'll be brought before governors and kings because of me, as a witness to them and the Gentiles." And obviously, he was talking to the early church, and this became a reality for them really quite quickly, in that they were hounded out of Jerusalem, they were killed, they were imprisoned, and yet as they fled across the whole land of Israel and the surrounding countries, they took the gospel with them. But this is also a message for us today, and in many countries at this time, Christians are being persecuted, and frequently, in fact, by other religious faiths. So for synagogues, read Islamic or Hindu extremists, even Buddhists. And in Pakistan and Iran, we know that churches are being burned, Christian homes are being burnt down, Christians are accused of apostasy and often stoned to death or arrested and put under the death sentence. But also atheism and secularism are real threats to Christian communities. And the Open Doors organization say that North Korea is actually the worst place for Christian persecution. Closer to home, in France, secular humanists are burning Catholic churches in some of the rural areas. So let's not think that this problem is something remote from us. And we need to be aware that as social media races ahead, there is now a culture growing in this country where people make their own value system and then judge other people by it. So we have this what's called virtue signaling, where people feel that their standards are higher than other people's and develop gross intolerance towards those who don't have the same system as them on gender issues, vaccination issues, all sorts of areas like meat eating even. So we're in a situation where as Christians we will be judged as intolerant by those who are even more intolerant and hating us because of our values. We've seen in the recent press that, for example, anti-vaxxers are being trained in violence so that they can storm into vaccination centres and cause havoc. So we can see that this could be happening in churches before long. Let's be aware that we are not immune to what is actually the end times death throes of Satan's rule and reign. And it's actually all part of God's plan. If you read the preceding verse to this passage, God says, I'm sending you out like sheep surrounded by wolves. So as persecution increases, it's an opportunity to share faith. And the passage says, don't be worried about what you say when you put on trial. I'll give you the words. And we see this when Paul was giving his defense against Festus. He gave a magnificent account of the gospel. So let's prepare ourselves. Let's be ready by being close to God and guarding our hearts against compromise. Let's pray for our children and grandchildren who are actually perhaps more likely to be part of this end time scenario. But let's not be afraid, because a little bit further on it says, don't be afraid of those who can kill the body but not the soul. And at the end of the day, we're going to be in heaven. Have a good day.